I'm going to start with Nunes phase 2. What is this going to look like?
Well, this is a very, very interesting development. We saw the memo that basically proved to all Americans that a Pfizer warrant, a surveillance warrant, was illegally acquired against a member of the Trump campaign. Exculpatory evidence was hidden from the Pfizer court, specifically the fact that this was an Oppo research file paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. Now we're going to go a little bit deeper. Who knew in the Obama administration about the file, where it truly came from, and where did they, what did they know and when did they know it? And specifically, has John Brennan committed perjury? That's going to be the big, big question.
You know, look, in some ways, I think, Dr. Gorka, we should have known about this, right? I mean, and by the way, the Obama administration did know about it and didn't do much about it. But the reality is, this is how governments in the first world try and influence things. And whether we like it or not, we've had a history. And again, I don't know if Obama did this. There are a lot of things that he should have done that he didn't do. But historically, we have tried to influence elections. And we would be awfully naive to think that the Russians or the Chinese wouldn't also be trying to influence elections. I mean, they've gone back now decades, right? Trying to the Russians influence sentiment here in the United States. I guess the question is, have they been able to actually influence them? I'd argue that, you know, after all, it was her decision not to go and campaign in Pennsylvania. So the Russians had nothing to do with that. But they created enough distrust. They created enough chaos. For goodness sakes, they had rallies that Michael Moore was championing and being a part of right here in New York City after the president was elected. So they were able to create a sense of disinformation that they were putting out there and put one side against the other. With all that in mind, how do, one, we protect ourselves from any of their influence going forward, and two, what did we miss? What should we have done during the Obama administration years?
Look, let's jettison the moral equivalency argument. America has influenced elections in other people's countries. The Soviet Union did it since 1917 onwards, and so has China. But guess what? We're the good guys. We undermine communists. We undermine fascists. When former KGB officers like Vladimir Putin are having his people do it to us in America, that's a threat. What do we do about it? We have to revitalize counterintelligence in this country. We haven't done effective counterintelligence since the end of the Cold War, really. Rod Rosenstein used a very interesting phrase in his press conference last week. He used the phrase active measures. Active measures is what the Soviet Union and now Russia does. We need to have people who shed light on the propaganda, connect it with who's doing it, and then charge people, ideally people who aren't hiding in other countries and can be extradited. And what's really interesting, the people who knew about the Pfizer Gate scandal, who used that, guess what, Trish? They're here and they're Americans, and they can be charged and they can be prosecuted.
Well, I mean, look, unfortunately, and you and I have talked about this, I mean, you got CNN and the likes of other mainstream media outlets out there doing the work of the Russians for them.
Right.
You have the FBI issuing, in this case, a FISA warrant, not telling the judge where this information was coming from, in this case, Christopher Steele, Fusion GPS, via Hillary Clinton and the Democrats. I mean, this was opposition research that perhaps was actually fed to Christopher Steele by the Russians in the first place, to which I say, are we that dumb, Dr. Gorka? Is our FBI that dumb that they just missed that entirely? Because I read that thing, and it certainly didn't read like a piece of intelligence to me.
Look, this is a personal issue for me. I've worked with thousands of FBI agents, analysts, and SOS and task force agents. Look, the problem isn't with them. The problem is with the seventh floor at the FBI and the DOJ, who were convinced Hillary Clinton would win the election. and they were in the tank for Hillary Clinton. Just read the text messages from that IG investigation, which has yet to drop. Remember, the IG's report, which may be far more damaging for the Obama administration than Devin Nunes or the Grassley referrals, has yet to be released. These were people who were politicized and who Obama allowed to politicize others. That's what we have to get to the bottom of.
And I think the tragic thing in all of this, you can relate these two, in that our FBI was politicized, and whatever direction they were getting from the top on down was not to do what we needed the FBI to do to protect our children and protect our country, but instead to go after this administration, and perhaps Florida is proof of that. You know, a tragedy all around, but we got room for improvement, that's for sure, Dr. Gorka.
We do. Look, there's a reason this nation, since 1776 onwards, has never created an internal security service like MI5. We don't spy on fellow Americans unless we have very good reason and a judge gives you the warrant. That changed under the Obama administration. We have to walk the FBI back from being a political arm of the President of the United States, and Donald Trump is not going to allow that to happen again.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Good to see you tonight.
Thank you, Trish.